So this video is a little bit of just a stream of consciousness, I guess, on my part. I was doing some reflection on the recent events in the world of what we could call North American politics and the trends and the trajectories of the world in general, but particularly in North America. Now, of course, I'm a Canadian. I live in Canada, but I have visited America, the United States of America, and I have had dealings with Americans and American companies, and the differences between us are, they're there, but they're not what I would deem to be significant. There's no great cultural gap. You talk to, I'm a rural person, I'm a farmer, and worked in, humble work, and there's, people kind of like me at both sides of the border, from east to west, north to south. And I wanted to try to make a bit of a, I don't know whether you would call it a comparison, but to draw a parallel with the situation in North America and particularly the political situation, the societal situation that we find ourselves in, both in Canada and in the United States. In Canada, we have a very progressively liberal leader of our country, and have had for quite some time. And I would, I'm no expert, but I would say that it's the same thing in south of the border. There's quite a progressively liberal leader and leadership at the highest levels of the political sphere. So I'm something of a conservative. I'm kind of divided within myself. There are some matters on which I am quite liberal, and actually I sympathize to a great extent with more or less libertarian ideas and principles to some extent. There's no perfect political system of human devising that does not have limitations and drawbacks and whatnot. But the people in power presently are what I would call progressively liberal. They're not overly progressive in terms of upwardly progressing, but it's a downwardly progressing in terms of moral culture and spiritual culture and ethical culture and even fiscal responsibility and prudential matters of a practical sort. So they seem to lack a good moral compass, and they seem to lack a sound judgment on matters regarding geopolitics, and they're cunning, but I don't think they're excessively intelligent. And I say that as someone who's, not holding myself up as the example, but I can see stupidity when it's on display just as easily as the next person. So, but the parallel I wanted to draw here was the parallel between the accounts in the Bible, in the scriptures, in the Old Testament, of the leaders of the people of Israel. And this is, loose parallels, loose comparisons, obviously, but the messaging seems to be, to me, in the Old Testament, where you read through the accounts in Kings and Chronicles, and in the books of the prophets, and basically all sort of woven throughout the Old Testament. There seems to be this theme that when there is good leadership, when there's a good king, things go well for the nation. There is reform of institutions, there is reform of morals, there is success militarily, there is success culturally, spiritually, economically, and things go well. When there is an evil in the leadership, an evil king, things go badly. They are beset by enemies. Things go poorly in the spiritual realm. And what I keep coming back to in mulling it over is it seems like there is a spiritual basis behind both the evil and the good. And it seems like the corruption of religion is not long in bringing about the corruption of the nation, and the evil spiritual side tends to poison even the temporal and the economic and the military side of the country, of the nation, of the people. And so this is what we see in Scripture. Is there's a specific record recorded and kept and preserved for us of this series of good and evil leaders, and for our education and our study, and perhaps we could draw some lessons from it. So I think that it's fair to say that when the king or the leadership is evil, there are a great number of the ordinary folks who follow suit, and they will live up to the standards that are set before them. There's will rise to the level, to the bar to which we're presented. If you set the bar low, people will rise to the lowest, bar, and say, okay, I've done my duty, I've met the requirements, I've done my bit. Well, the higher you set the bar, you raise, in general, the whole flavor, the tone of discourse and behavior as well in the people. And so we're not really given a good picture of the details of the individual lives of people that the Bible sort of deals in themes and major characters, so that we see the kings, and there's a good king, and then there's a bad king, and then there's 2 or 3 bad kings, and then there's a good king, or at least a better king. And we see this great unfolding all through this history as king succeeds king, and one is good and one is bad, and then there's several bad, and then there's a good one. And finally we get to a king named Josiah. And here we have what I'm trying to get at, I guess, is when things seem to be on this downward, with little blips up, but then just slowly down, down, down. In the moral and the spiritual and the cultural and the economic and the military, and things just seem to be spiraling slowly, ever, toilet bowling. Then we get this Josiah, and there have been many discussions, lessons, sermons, things said and written about Josiah. But essentially what I see in this Josiah figure is, obviously it was put in the Bible for us to learn from. We're to take the scriptures seriously. And so what we have is this figure, this king who comes along and is made aware of the dire situation and how far away from the ideal, here's the bar and here's where the people are, and what he wants to do is to bring everything up to where it needs to be. And naturally he is quite passionate about this and quite disturbed that things have gotten to this point, and he seems to be genuinely trying to make efforts to reform, and indeed he is able to turn things around, at least for a time. Ultimately he's not God, and God had a better view, I guess, of the depth of the corruption of things and how things needed to be dealt with, long term. They had the big picture of the eternal future. So, but looking at the political situation of today in North America, I see a bit of a dividing line between those on the one hand who would seek to set the bar low, and these would be the progressively liberal forces who seem to be to be in charge of institutions, whether it's educational or religious or political or even perhaps industrial institutions. And then on the other hand, you have these people who seek to raise the level, to raise the bar of our cultural and our spiritual and our moral and our ethical and our economic and our military life, And I'm just speaking in general terms here, not speaking specifics, but just generally, one wants to lower the bar, one wants to raise the bar to low standard to high standard. And when we look at, I'm a Christian, I'm a Catholic, I believe in, not a good one, but, I may, in the end wind up missing the boat, but at least the way I see it, the message of right through Scripture and is a call upwards, a call to seek the best, to always strive for the very best in our moral lives, in our, in ethics, in the work we do, no matter what we do, whether we're in the political world or whether we're in the academic world or whether we're in business world or whatever we do, the arts. We should always strive for the best and the highest and what's beautiful and good and excellence. We should always strive for excellence. And we should never try to bring down the standards to meet the low. We should always try to raise the low up to the high standards. Because if we set the standards low, there's no upward progress. It's always a downward trending culture. And what we need to do is turn that around and raise it up. So I think the call of Jesus in the scriptures, in the Gospels, come, follow me, and I will show you what it means to strive. And it doesn't mean driving around in a limousine, playing golf on Sunday, going fishing, going hunting. It doesn't mean any of those things. What it means is humbling ourselves enough to say, okay, you teach me. You tell me what to do, how to live, how to think, how to act, how to react, how to respond, how to control my character, how to form my conscience, how to live my life. And it's humbling ourselves, just things as simple as the Ten Commandments and the moral precepts and the counsels of Scripture, and particularly in the Gospels. They call them the evangelical counsels, and they're it is in submitting ourselves that we are granted the grace to rise and to strive and to work. Because in and of ourselves, there's no merit that's going to save us, to help us, to achieve anything great. We are given the abilities to do the things we do, but apart from the grace of God, they will never meet the mark. They will never meet the mark. And when I look at the world around me today, I see all kinds of people with abilities, and yet where is society going? Society is going steadily downwards, and there seems to be no uptick in the moral and the ethical and the spiritual culture of our day. And it seems to be, it's come to a bit of a head, with this latest, fiasco in the United States with this attempted assassination of one of the presidential candidates. And I think to myself, is this what the progressive liberals in the world have come to? Where the only way for them to rise, to be what they would consider on top, is to exterminate those who stand in their way. Is that what it's come to? Have the liberals become so small-minded and focused on being king of the hill, that the only way they can see to get their way to the top, to be in charge, to be the boss, to have power, to be the demigods, is to just exterminate everybody who stands in their way and who opposes them. And I see this similar things in Canada. Obviously, we haven't had, to this point, we haven't had an assassination attempt on any of our politicians, recently. And I hope we don't, because there's never a time and a place to murder anyone. There's never a time and a place to commit murder. and I can say that without qualification. So I just wanted to draw a little bit of a comparison between the leadership and people below them, and it seems like when you have a good leader, the grace of God is able to be metered out to the nation as a whole. And when you have an evil leader, it seems like God withholds his grace as a means of chastening and chastising the nation and the people. And so the poor people, the little people, like me, here I am, I'm sitting in a rented shop that I rent in my overalls, like I'm nobody. I'm just a guy with an old cell phone that can barely take a picture. And yet it seems like I can see this bit of a parallel between good leadership and God's blessing and bad leadership and the lack of blessing, and the low bar and the high bar. And I would say, what we need are good leaders who strive to set a high bar and who believe in not liberalism, but liberty, freedom. Not freedom in the terms of license to, become anarchists and, what libertarianism can become if you carry it to an extreme. And it's just like monarchy can be carried to an extreme and become dictatorship and despotism. But what we have now are just elected dictators, it seems to me. I have voted in every election since I've been old enough to vote. I'm, turning 50 this year, and you vote for the lesser of the evils. There's no candidate who will ever perfectly match your own opinions. But I always try to look at the objective facts. The platforms, obviously, of the parties, and in Canada here we have 3 parties primarily. There's independents, and then there's smaller parties, primarily at the provincial level and so forth. But you vote for the candidate and the party and the platform that you feel most closely aspires to the ideals that you aspire to. You want to be able to vote with a good conscience. And so I've tried to do that, and sometimes their leaders, they disappoint you, and you expect that almost nowadays, that everyone seems to be more interested in getting elected and staying elected than actually doing the right thing and being moral and being upright and doing what is true and good and just and beautiful and making this country, I'm Canadian, I would love to see America great. I would love to see Canada great. I would love to see Mexico great. I would like to see all 3 countries great and able to work together, but not in some artificial financial cunning, scheming, based on tariffs, trade, and all this, man-made hullabaloo. But 3 separate nations who are able to work with each other in ways that are good and that are noble and that are honorable, to be a witness to the rest of the people of the earth as to, how things could be, how they should be, how they ought to be, and, hopefully how they are. I don't know, I'm no expert, I'm not a politician, I never will be, don't want to be. I'm just a little guy in my overalls sitting in my shop on a rainy day, and hoping for a change for the better in the States, hoping for a change for the better here in Canada, because things are not good. They're not good economically. They're not good militarily. They're not good morally. They're not good spiritually. We have big problems both sides of the border, and I'm no expert in any of those departments, but I'm sure hoping that we have a change for the better, and that we have good leadership, moral, righteous, upright leadership, even if they fall and fail sometimes, as long as they try and make an effort and are willing to stand their ground for what's right and do what's right. And on the world stage, on the national stage, on the regional stage. So I'm going to leave it there for now. I got to get some work done, so sign off. Talk to you later.